the format of the session is I'm going to show some slides and kind of showing where the results I kind of mentioned at the start or in the advertising, and then going through what I think were the most important elements of it, and trying to be transparent as well about how what my poor habits are as well. So, for example, I love sweet things. When I go to the cinema, I will buy a lot of Haribo and I will eat it. I have ice cream fairly regularly. And yeah, so like those are some of the other elements, and there'll be time to ask questions as well as we go through it. Just a second, someone sent a message.
Hey, Martin.
Oh, you're in, Brian.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't realize that the register, so the Zoom wasn't working, but I managed to do it there.
Lovely. Yeah, yeah, it was my first time using the functionality on my website, so it didn't. There's some hiccups with it from my side.
Nice, nice. How are things?
Not too bad. We'll give it another minute and we'll get started, I think.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm actually also just finishing off the slides as well, and didn't get as much done as I'd initially intended to.
I didn't realize there'd actually be slides. That's very
Yeah, it's almost professional. It should be
awesome.
professional if I was ready, but just a second.
I didn't realize you were 40 either. You're revealing your age.
Yeah, it's all out there now. Cool. So going to share my screen. Yeah. Yeah, so this is a webinar on and what I consider as a big kind of success for me personally is in the last year, I gained about 5.8 kilos of muscle and lost 2.5 kilos of fat. And the reason why I think that's so remarkable is when I went to get the DEXA scan done to determine my body composition, it's something I do every year for the last few years. And when I sat down with the guy, like I felt like I wasn't making any progress. I saw myself just gaining weight the whole year, and I was like, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm just getting fatter because it felt like I was being lazy. It felt like I wasn't working very hard, and so I tell him, oh, I think maybe I'll gain a couple of 100 grams because that's what happened the previous year. I'll show like I've done the DEXA scan for 3 years in a row, and so I told him, oh, maybe a couple of 100 grams of muscle, but probably just as much fat as well. And okay, let's see. And the results of it were, I still kind of shocked at it. Is so going from 2022 to 2024, my body weight went from about 81 kilos to 85, and then in 2024 to 88 kilos. specifically between 23 and 24. That's a 3 kilo jump. You can see my fat's been kind of all over the place. As has my android gynoid ratio. That's essentially how much belly fat you have versus hip fat. And especially in men, a higher amount of belly fat, so a high ratio of this is associated with a lot of mortality indicators like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, etc. Not that I was in danger of any of those things. My muscle mass kind of floating around the 600 or 65 or 66 kilos for 2 years. So I'd been training and doing stuff between 2022 and 2023. But you can see here it only really explodes then going into 24, where I jump up to the 5.8. And what surprised me just as much was that I lost, like in that time, I also lost muscle fat mass. The BMI, which I say LOL because it's almost meaningless. Like my BMI, I'm technically obese or almost obese, which I'm not. So it's as soon as you do any kind of exercise, the BMI becomes meaningless. It's almost a mark of pride. And as well, my metabolic rate, so how many calories, if I was just to lie in bed all day, I'd need at the moment about 1900 calories. So that's a big thing as well. Like the more muscle you have, the more you need to eat. Maybe before I jump on, any kind of remarks or additional questions, I can go through the reports as well if you like. But these are kind of the key numbers, especially around the muscle mass and the fat mass change. Good. I'll continue. So kind of the main thing that's been on my mind the last several years is training to live and not living to train. From the age of 18 to about 33 years, I was training about 20 hours a week between Kung Fu, strength and conditioning. And I was sleeping about 5 to 7 hours. Like my sleeping habits in particular were terrible. And I ate everything in sight. When I was in my early 30s, I went to a friend's house here in Antwerp, and I literally ate twice as much food as the 3 guys on the table with me. Like we had drumsticks and potatoes, and we could clearly quantify that I ate more food than the other 3 guys. And so I was never very careful about my eating habits. Now anyone that sees this, it's not going to be a surprise that it came to a crash not soon after this. And then from 33 to 38, I had more pressure at work, relationship struggles, and my motivation and belief in the value of my training really nosedived because I was living to train. I wasn't really training to live. And I gained weight from going from a lab to an office job, and I gained even more weight than going when COVID hit. So I was around 90 kilos at the start of COVID, or not long into COVID, I should say. And so then 38 to 40, how can I find a sustainable way to train that is still engaging and also doesn't feel like it's a burden, doesn't feel like it costs me a lot of time. And to that point, there's kind of these priorities that for me are really important in terms of general lifestyle: sleep, hydration, food, inner peace, and what I'll call influencer stuff, which is usually what people talk about the most, is like strength and conditioning and so forth. So in terms of priorities, sleep, here are my rules. How much can you minimize alarm clock usage? You can't oversleep. Like you will eventually, depending on how relaxed you are, you will continue sleeping until you wake up naturally. So I've made a switch the last couple of years, and it's really because of the relationship I was in. She had amazing sleep hygiene, absolutely amazing. And we spent a lot of time making it better and better. So darkness, using a blindfold is even useful for this. I will use this during the summer months, especially. but darkness and the nighttime ritual, which will tie back into my inner peace piece. But having something that will relax you, bring you down into a stage where you're ready to go to bed, where you're almost drawn to the bed. Those are the really important things when it comes to sleep. So depending on your lifestyle, it might not be realistic to avoid the alarm clock, but I'd really encourage to do that as much as possible, because it's a small trauma. Like, even I had to use the alarm clock a couple of times last week, and I was hallucinating the alarm clock on Saturday morning. Like, I was waking up convinced I'd heard an alarm clock, which wasn't there. So it means some changes. It means some changes in habits, especially around nighttime. Putting the phone in the other room, or minimum screen time after a certain point. But nighttime rituals can really help with that. And I think it's even easier if you might be in a relationship or together with someone, that you can kind of work together towards that. Then in terms of hydration, this was a big thing for me. Genetically, I don't retain salts very well, and I would get very bad headaches if I didn't take my electrolytes. So especially since September last year, I got some wonderful advice about different electrolytes, and I've since switched over to a homemade batch of it, which is a mix of Celtic sea salt and potassium chloride. It's really the sodium is something to watch out for, but if you have like low sodium electrolytes with a mix of water, that's something I personally swear by. And it takes some experimentation, and all the way through everything I'm talking about here, it's really important to learn to understand the signs your body are giving you. So I can tell when I'm low on salt. I can feel that because I'll have the beginnings of a headache, or I'll feel it in my tissues that I'm starting to get low on salt. So having these different markers, and your priorities could be different to mine. I'm just offering these as things that might be helpful changes that could lead to a big shift. So yeah, the electrolytes, low sodium and water, and really being hydrated. Water hydration for me impacts my sensitivity to stress. My kung fu student and I, when we would see each other at work, we'd ask if one of us was, I just snapped at someone, or I lost my temper. The first things we would say to each other, well, have you slept enough, and have you drank enough water? It's like talking to a little baby. What happens to babies when they're thirsty, when they're tired, they're cranky? No, we've only become more sophisticated babies, essentially. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind, is how does a lack of sleep affect your mood? How does a lack of sleep affect your tolerance to stress? How does a lack of hydration? How does hunger, which we'll jump on to next. So for me, with hunger, I'm a comfort eater. When I'm stressed, I love to eat sweet things. I crave it. And that's still something I struggle with. And it's what's helped me a lot with this is intermittent fasting, is creating a window where I do eat. This doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And I remember when I went from 16 to 19-hour intermittent fasting window, I couldn't handle it. Like, I was going kind of crazy because I was putting myself under this type of pressure. Whereas now it doesn't bother me anymore. Take a really patient and think all these things, think about it like a year-long project. Things you gain slowly, you lose slowly. So the intermittent fasting, if you notice what you naturally eat now, and consider maybe going to intermittent fasting if fat gain is a challenge for you. And the big thing from this year is around portion control. I do, much like every aspiring influencer does, I do meal prep as much as possible. So I will make my food on a Sunday, and then I'll just pack it in the fridge or the freezer for the rest of the week. And there, that would cover my dinner meal, and then for breakfast I'd have either oatmeal or scrambled egg. And there it was a lot of, because I'm so boring with my food intake, I was able to gradually kind of go, well, this is a bit too much food, and managing the portion size over time, and not looking at it as failures. Like you learn more from a failure than you do from success. Like success just confirms everything you already know. And when I was younger, I was a fat child, and that's still part of my identity. That's still something that comes up in my self-esteem or my sense of self. I can be very critical about how I look, and I never had a weighing scales at home. But then during COVID, I bought one, and it was one of those ones that's electronic monitored. So I've got almost every day for the last 4 years. I've got I know what my weight was. I've got the data, and what that did for me was going mindfully about it. I used to be nervous about how much I would weigh. And then, but I accepted it. I stood on the weighing scales and I saw the number and I looked at the trends, and I realized I started not to take my weight personally because I was seeing it going up and down, up and down. So it was almost like having a haircut. Like that's how kind of reversible or flexible it felt. And that kind of mentality helped me a lot around this. If that's something that you might be fragile about, that's something I really resonate with. But in terms of the food, I think it's useful to weigh yourself, but notice how it affects you mentally and emotionally to do so. Same thing with the intermittent fasting. Number one indicator of how you're doing is how you're feeling. And that brings us to the next point. So, sleep, water, food are fundamental. If those are taken care of, a lot of other things will feel much more manageable. Uh, Priorities for inner peace, meditation and stillness, which ties into the nighttime ritual. I love to do my meditation before bed. That's when I do it. I used to, when I was training 4 hours a day, I do meditation in the morning as well. Now, I don't like training too much in the morning. I just want to get started with my day, but I love meditation and stillness at night. It's such a nourishing thing for me, because I'm a night owl, and it's my time for myself, and there's no distractions or anything. I really kind of wrap myself in the darkness, and that's helped me a lot. So meditation practices and stillness, uh, which they'll also feed into the influencer stuff later, and therapy. From 20 September 2022, I was noticing more and more that I couldn't get out of bed, and eventually I would, but I would have to ask myself each time, is this the day I don't get out of bed? So I took that as a sign that maybe I should go to therapy. And so I started going through looking for therapists, and that was a slow process with a lot of false starts. I have a therapist now that I'm very happy with. The therapists I had previously were helpful, but uh, the eventually I kind of reached a diminishing return with them. That was generally around feeling kind of judged by them. That if I was sharing something to them, uh, as a topic for the therapy, I could see their eyes light up because they were going to tell me why what I did there was wrong. And I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, that's why I'm in therapy. Like I recognize that there's something dysfunctional about how I think or look at myself. So kind of reinforcing that didn't let me feel safe, and that's a really important thing around the therapy is if you feel you need it, to have someone that you feel safe with. that you don't feel judged by, and that you feel, encouraged and supported by. And knowing your values, reflecting on, are you living your dream? And are you supporting yourself in your boundaries and your relationships? That's just really important. If you surround yourself with mainly positive influences, it's very nourishing, and it's really fundamental thing. Let's see if okay. So I didn't prepare the slide yet on the sorry, on the strength, but I'll talk through kind of the main things I did with that. The influencer stuff, I'll call it. And that's kind of my favorite thing the last while was intermittent training. I suppose in general, intermittent training in general. And that includes sauna. So these are kind of the influencer things I do. And I say that because I actually got these practices from Instagram, from people I know and follow on Instagram. The sauna is a thing I started this year. And because I started it this year, I suspect that's the reason why I had such a gain in muscle. The sauna, when you do it about once a week, the studies that Huberman mentions, I'll share it in I'll share the slide deck afterwards to anyone that's interested with some references. But one of the things that Huberman mentions, and I think it's a Finnish researcher, Sunneman, that talks about it in more detail, is if you sauna can spike your human growth hormone production. And so, human growth hormone is going to promote growth. It's going to promote recovery and muscle growth, especially. So that's a key thing that I started doing this year that I wasn't doing before. Another thing I started doing this year that I wasn't doing before is running. So I started doing zone 2 running, which is basically run as fast as you can without pushing yourself. Running at a speed that doesn't feel effortful, that you could, like, for example, terrible practice, but it's a speed you could look at your phone at. Like if you're typing a message on your phone while you're running, that's the speed. And I think that's helped me a lot. It's certainly nice for the heart. And the strength and the loaded walking, I've been doing longer. And as you can see, going from 22 to 23, there wasn't a big change. There was like a 500-gram difference in body weight, in lean body weight in that period. And I gained quite a bit of fat at the same time. Not that that's... I tell myself not that there's anything wrong with that, just because I do have that reaction to it. And the strength training I do, everything I do here is once a week. And that's something in terms of sustainability, I think is realistic. I'd be curious about how other people experience it, but almost everyone I've spoken to that does their strength training once a week, they continue to get stronger and stronger. The idea that you have to train every day or every couple of days to gain muscle, to gain strength, or even to maintain it is provably false. The important thing there is that everything you do intermittently, it needs to leave an impression. It, like, one of the Instagrams I follow says, doesn't quote reps, it says do until emotional reaction. So that's kind of, again, this idea of noticing your internal story, your internal experience as you train. Don't get stuck with repetitions. Don't get stuck with, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. When it comes to my strength training, on average, I was probably doing strength training every 7 to 8 days. And sometimes the least amount of time I had between sessions was 5 days, and that would have been once in the last year. And almost every single session I've had, I've seen an increase in ability. For example, since September last year to now, I've gone from being able to squat um, uh, 56 kilos to about 75 kilos. Feeling like it's a similar effort, like the quality of the squat is improved. And I don't generally squat. I do split squats instead. Or for my pull-up training, I do mantle pull-ups. So this is the hand that's working, and then I've got a ring hanging down here, and I vary the distance of that. So the lower down the ring goes, the more this hand has to work. And I've gone from start of the year 20 centimeters down to 60 centimeters of a difference. For the loaded walking, and that's something that's I really feel like it's my own thing. I go for walks with my kettlebell. I started doing it 2 years ago, and I love it. It's kind of like cardio, but it's relatively low impact, and it's got a huge kind of strength component, time under tension component. So for the shoulders and the torso and the delts, it's quite a pleasant and low intensity and sneaky way to get some strength work in. And that's something, when I go do my strength work, I walk about 1.6 kilometers all together with my kettlebell, with my strength equipment to get there. At the moment, that's about walking with 33 kilos. And what I've seen, again, time and time again, is doing something once a week is enough if you get to that emotional reaction part. What I'd really encourage people to do is avoid the middle. So work at the extremes, either work at an intensity that you can do every day and it doesn't leave you stiff or tired, or work at an intensity once a week or once a while that does leave you tired and stiff. I went training yesterday. I am stiff all over my body. And I will wait until I'm not stiff again to do my next session. And even then, I might wait a bit longer. So those are kind of the key things. I would say sleep, hydration, the inner peace, and the sauna are probably the most important things for me in this. And I'm also, because as I said at the top of the presentation, this is a case study of one. So I've done it myself. I've spent the last 4 years playing around with and trying to figure out a way to a way that's sustainable for me, that if I have a family in the future, next time I'm in a relationship, that I am in sacrificing time with my loved ones just to fulfill my needs for training. If you look at all these things all together, it's about 5 to 6 hours a week of practice. Which it's not a lot. It comes in peaks, so it's 2 hours of strength training. It's going to be about an hour and a half of sauna, an hour and a half of running, and the loaded walking is included in the strength actually. So yeah, just about 6 hours, and that together with the other habits I had this year, I've gained 5.6 kilos of muscle and I lost 2.5 kilos of fat in a way where I genuinely wasn't expecting it. This has been a genuine, easy pleasure to do, to the point that I didn't expect to see as much progress and change. Yeah. So yeah, open it up to any kind of questions, stuff I've glossed over, stuff you're skeptical about, especially like that you're thinking, oh, this is, being crude about it, this is bullshit, or whatever kind of comes to mind for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. Well done, Martin. Sounds lovely. Sounds like a lovely process. I love the ease at which you've described it, and the way that if something does come up in your life, you can keep these practices going. It's not like you're putting so much energy into these that it would completely shift your world if you had to change some of them.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed you've been doing this year that I actually before the talk had put down to my assuming ahead of time was the sandbag work, and
Mm.
I thought that looked like something that was a new type of strength training for you that
Yeah.
have good built layers of muscle.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had a
And
role.
say, sorry, I cut you off.
Also, do you think that had a role in
Oh
this?
yeah. I It probably did, but it doesn't feel like work. Like I love the sandbag. I feel like a dog with a new toy. Like even when I make videos of playing around with the sandbag, I always lose track of time, and I just was like, oh, I'll just do it like a minute long or 2 minute long, and I just end up spending more time with it. And what I love about the sandbag work, and if anyone's like, one of the things I have in mind with this webinar is to offer kind of a lifestyle coaching or support in finding a lifestyle that works for you based on my experience and knowledge. And as I said, it might be different to you, but for me, a core thing is the sandbag work, because it's there's a guy who's been studying it relating to PTSD as well. So there's something about the sandbag work, because it's a soft object. It's almost a surrogate for a human. Part of my nighttime ritual is I will put the sandbag on my chest. At the moment, that's a 70 kilo sandbag on my diaphragm on my chest. And I've tested this out with some other people, and it exposes a lot of tension in the body. And the whole process around the meditations I do, the qigong and the martial arts I do, it's a process of relaxation. One of my clients, described what I teach with Bear Paw practice as the art of relaxation. And part of that is just finding different scenarios and how they challenge relaxation. So the sandbag might be part of it. I just started using that in May. I might have to look at my weight trend to see when the numbers took off. Another thing I started doing, which probably had an influence as well, is from May or so, I started taking creatine as well. So I just mentioned the electrolytes as a supplement, but I do also take some other supplements. They're more kind of scientifically motivated. The electrolytes, I know if I don't take enough electrolytes, I will have a problem. So like that's purely my personal experience. Also, I take turmeric. Okay, let's see. Nice. That's a really important one, Bram. I'll answer that in a moment. So I take turmeric because it helps with my joint inflammation. That's also something I would feel the difference if I don't take it every day or regularly. I'll feel that in my joints. And creatine is an interesting supplement to take, because it's generally considered to be a highly effective one. It helps with recovery, which I do feel like when I take my creatine, my stiffness disappears. In the past, my stiffness might persist for 4 to 5 days, whereas now it's gone after about 3 days. So like for me, there's an experiential difference taking the creatine versus not taking it. but it's also pro-cognitive. It helps with mental performance. That's some of the information that's coming out recently. And of course, I take collagen as well for for connective tissues. But collagen, like creatine, turmeric, and electrolytes, I can say yes, I have a personal experience that I can really feel the difference. The collagen, the magnesium I take, stuff like that is like, oh, if they say it's worthwhile, then it's a low risk for me to take it. Now I'm going to pull up the question that Bram had, and I'm going to show it here. So the influence of genetics and muscle gaining is huge. It is not to be underestimated, and also history. Like I have trained my whole life on top of whatever genetic gifts I might have, and there is truth in the idea of muscle memory. Like once you've created muscle, it might waste away, it might disappear, but as soon as you start training again, you're going to respond more quickly to it than someone that didn't train like that before. Also, because of my long time training, my connective tissues are in a different place as well. Like the level of conditioning in my connective tissues is a lot higher. So like those are kind of key parts of linked to this question that Bram's raising. Like I'm not going to come out and guarantee that you can gain 6 kilos or that you can gain 7.5% of muscle in a year. That would be grossly unethical of me to claim. But I think there are elements in what I've looked at here that can help someone gain some muscle. And I'm really curious if of going on that journey with people in going into 2025 to try and quantify that for them and to see if, like, because honestly, Bram, it could be the case that maybe it's all down to genetics. We give the same kind of protocol I have here to Brian, Simon, or Talia, and nothing happens, or they end up injured. It's perfectly possible. That's part of my curiosity, and I'm certainly not claiming or pushing for that I have a solution. I don't believe in solutions. I believe in processes. I believe in reflection. I also believe in really kind of listening and allowing some kind of internal guidance with it. Simon?
Yeah, like I got one thing to say in a question afterwards, but like to it was very fascinating for me to listen to your talk and watching your slides. Since like I'm younger, I'm 29, but like I've made like in the past years, when was it? January, like yeah, 9, 10, 11 months, I also gained like 6, 7 kilogram of muscle. And that was something like which I've also tried like for years before. It was really hard for me to gain some muscles. And like like the point of the inner peace and the running really stuck with me. Like that had been two things that I really changed also. Like really cared about my inner peace.
Yeah.
And I think that really allowed the body like, okay, now it's safe. Now we can gain a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fascinating. So I like, yeah. So I had similar experiences.
Yeah. In scientific terms, they talk about cortisol levels, like,
Yeah,
which is the stress hormone, like that. If cortisol is high in your system, inflammation is up, recovery is down, sleep quality is down.
testosterone is down and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
But it's poisonous.
Uh-huh.
Um, like it's it can serve a purpose, but chronic stress isn't where it's at.
Uh-huh.
Yes, the inner peace, like that, having that relaxation. If you're relaxed, if you can yawn, then your body's in recovery mode. And it doesn't matter how much you train, if you don't have a recovery mode, you're not going to become stronger, healthier, fitter.
And the question of mine would be like, if you can specify what you mean with train until you have an emotional reaction, or how
Yeah.
does this look to you, or how, because the mind and the feeling somehow is sneaky. Like there's some,
Yes. Yes. There's experimentation in that. One of the big kind of breakthroughs I've had in the last 18 months is recognizing when doubt undermines my power. So like if let's say I'm doing chin-ups for repetition, or I'm doing a version of a chin-up for repetition, and I get to the point of struggle. So in the beginning, it's like, okay, easy, easy, easy. And then I get to the point of struggle. But it's just my first moment of struggle. And what I let happen to me at that point is critical. Like if I go, I can't do this, I will physically get weaker. Like I can feel it in my chest that I'm gone. And a big thing I focused on with one of my clients even last year was this idea of going from fear to curiosity. When I feel those moments of doubt, uh, can I ask, is that so? Like, is that really the case? And that's kind of again, that idea of inner peace, of awareness, and meditation becomes really powerful even in strength training, is having that almost constant or pervasive awareness of how are you, and being able to test that and navigate it. Like it's not going to fix your life's problems, but noticing how you sabotage yourself during a strength training can help you notice how you sabotage yourself outside of, like, in the real life. Another thing that's fascinating about the strength work is don't be shy of failure. The way I train, and I got this from the mindful mover, is I don't do I do my hardest sets. Like I'll make sure I feel kind of comfortable and safe, but then I will do my hardest exercises, and that's what I focus on. I don't like, and so that means playing around with how hard can I go today. So like I'll pick a certain thing that I'm kind of curious about, and then I'll work at that level until I'm bored of it. So I'm not following, like I didn't have a personal trainer to program what I did the last year. It was just curiosity and going, did that feel satisfying? Did that get into me? Did that leave an effect? And that's really kind of a critical part for me. Is I I'm interested in coaching people about their experience of training. I can help kind of facilitate it, but if you prefer to do bench pressing compared to push-ups, fantastic. Like there's a group called Gold Medal Bodies, and they say, the best exercise you do is the one you like doing. Like like anything beats sitting down on the couch doing nothing. And if you hate the training you're doing, that's going to be a huge barrier to staying with that training. And noticing for me at least, noticing how I respond to failure, and a willingness to really test myself every session and say, well, I think I can get this, and then sticking with it as long as it feels valuable. And then when it starts feeling easy, like for example, now I'm doing my split squats with 33 kilos of weight, and I think I'm going to go up to 36 next, because I feel like, I've got it. And that's really what, like, and sometimes I won't even decide I'm going to change my exercise until I get to training. And then it's like, well, you know what? I think I'm curious about this, or I'm a bit nervous about this. Like where is the uncertainty? Where is the seeking of uncertainty, or where is the kind of nervousness of uncertainty? Because, and this is a rule they use in strongman, doing one heavy thing is better than doing a lot of lighter things.
Mhm.
When it comes to strength training, for sure. So
Yeah.
for example, I do like when I'm doing my chin up training, I'll start with the 60 centimeter difference between here and here, and I'll do my pull up. And if I just do one, I just do one, then I swap. Just last night, I managed to do 2 in a row, and I'll try for 3 in a row the next time, and then when I get to 3 or 4, I'll drop it down again. But really kind of noticing, what can you do right now? What are you curious about doing right now? And not being fixed in a dogma of, I need to do X repetitions, I need to do Y repetitions, and noticing a sense of, and this comes back, Simon, to what you were asking about as well, a sense of satiation. So
Mhm.
that feeling you have when you drink enough water, that feeling you have when you eat enough food, that
Yeah,
feeling you
nice.
have
Yeah.
when you have slept enough, use that in your training, and notice, like, it's not, notice where that can come from. A big idea, and I think I'll put it into the, where is it? Hydration, inner peace. Yeah. A big uh, a big idea for me is, and I learned this from one of the therapists I didn't stay with. And this is like, and when it comes to training practices, when it comes to so much, this is the most powerful. Like, it's maybe audacious of me, but this is the most powerful insight you can have to help yourself, and that is recognizing the difference between instinct and intuition. And for me, instinct is driven by a sense of urgency, usually a sense of strong desire or avoidance, and something must happen. And something must happen right now, or else something bad will happen. Like that sense of dread. So that's, for me, instinct. And intuition is something that almost feels timeless. It feels like there's a rhythm to it. There's no rush, but everything happens. Like, if any of you have ever watched Harry Potter, when Harry takes the good luck potion, and he just kind of goes, no, I think I'll do this now. And everything just kind of works out. So recognizing the difference between instinct and intuition. Instinct is fearful. There's a sense of calmness around intuition, and they can all be happening at the same time. Like, you could have this warring, the idea of the two wolves inside of you, or the two whatever's inside of you, and it's learning to differentiate. Okay, I am terrified right now, but there's a calmer part of me somewhere that is encouraging me to be still. So, like, instinct, it's never not going to be there. Neither is intuition, and that's again why the inner peace, meditation, and stillness can help you so much. Is the more, if you've been in fight or flight mode your entire life because you're a perfectionist, because you've low self-esteem, because you're suffering from some kind of PTSD or ADHD, even, all these things make it very difficult to recognize intuition, and that can only really come from more and more time in relaxation. But if you, and I would credit my progress with the strength work the last year with listening to my intuition, because it's, and it's there at the end. Can I do another rep, or am I satisfied with how much I've done? Sometimes when I'm squatting, like, my legs are shaking at the top, and I go, no, I'm physically nervous about taking that next squat. So yeah, that's probably the number one kind of mindset or mentality advice I'd give, is cultivate and recognize the distinction of instinct versus intuition. And that is something, heart on hand, hand on heart, hand on heart, I would say would help you in all parts of your life. Learn the difference between instinct and intuition. Learn the difference between acting out of urgency versus acting out of timeliness. There's a lovely rhythm, there's a sense of peace, of rightness that comes with acting out of intuition. Usually, acting out of instinct it's hollow or it's disappointing. Yeah.
Thank you. Like, I'm really looking forward to experiment with this also in the strength training. Like, I'm doing pull-ups with extra weight, and I've gone up like in some numbers, but I felt like, I have to stay at this certain weight for some time to let all the tissue and stuff adapt. But today and stuff, I realized I was doing it today, it felt boring to me, and it was like, the intuition is more like, go higher. Like, it does not feel juicy anymore, even if I was just doing it for some short time now. So I will try it out, how it is, how I feel next time, and how it is with more weight and stuff. But it feels like the intuition tells me like, there's more.
Yeah. And like it's a literal example of limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Bram has just shared a wonderful comment here. I'll put it out again. Another kind of phrasing around intuition versus instinct and so forth is kind of fight or flight, and polyvagal theory talks about this as well. So this sense of safety is really critical for recognizing intuition. And it's not that you are in a safe situation, it's that you feel internally safe. And those are that's a really important distinction. The sense of safety, I think, is really powerful, and the only one we've control over is an ability to safely experience ourselves. That, like I had this big breakthrough moment last year was it last year? It might even have been in 2022 with the woman I was seeing, where she got very angry at me, and she goes, "Oh, why are you always afraid of me?" Because when we'd get into arguments, I would be fearful. I'd be reluctant to say it because I didn't want to offend, I didn't want to hurt. And she said, "Well, why are you scared of me?" And I realized I wasn't scared of her, because I've done enough martial arts training, I've done some parkour training, I've done circus training. I have had experiences with risk, and I could feel a direction in that fear. I could feel, because I am hanging 6 meters up in the air from a pole, this is a fearful situation. And when she said this to me, I realized that I wasn't scared of her, and that was a completely internalized fear that I was projecting onto her. And that's been a big thing for me is that so? I feel a fear. Am I blaming someone else for that fear? And sometimes it's no. Sometimes this other person is creating is the source of the fear, is a threat. But can you feel safe enough to feel what is happening? And again, the meditation, especially the standing practices and the relaxation, have helped me so much with that. That in the last 10 years, it feels like I've gone from living in a little 1-bed studio apartment with my emotional experience, that my fear, my anxiety would overwhelm me, and I just had to manage it so much. It was so exhausting, but I had the capacity to do it. As I said, when I was up until my mid-30s, I was boundless energy. So I had energy that I was using very carelessly because I had the option. But since then, I might have had a burnout. I certainly had a lot of complete change in how I respond to stress. I have to be so much more economical about that. And now I feel like I'm in a mansion, that I live in a mansion with all my experiences, and I have these huge rooms where my anger can't even touch the walls. It's there, it's free, but it can't even touch the walls. And the standing practices, the lying meditation, have been a huge part of that for me. Like, just in terms of quality of life, my ability to experience things, it's helped me so much. And recognizing that sometimes the fear is an instinct, it's not an intuition. The fear can inform intuition as well. If someone has violent intentions, you're going to notice that. If someone's going to criticize, I don't know, the color jumper you're wearing, it's not necessarily a useful source of fear. Yeah. So unless anyone has a hard stop, we're coming up to the end of the session. If there's any questions, still.
Will you stay with this for the next time, or like, are you planning to change something up again, or?
I'm planning to start running more. I was looking at my running data, and like for a while, this is a plot of heart rate and pace put together over the last year. So what you imagine is, if the number is high, that means I'm going fast and my heart rate is low, which are both good things. High heart rate, high speed. Sorry, did I do that right? Sorry, low heart rate, high speed. And you can see that I've kind of gone through a bell curve here. So up until January, there's this wonderful increase, and then gradually tailing off after January. And I did my lactate test again, and I didn't advertise it, but my lactate test this time was worse than the last time. Last time I wasn't even running, and it was better than it is now. I suspect I did have get some COVID in August that's been affecting my heart rate as well, because otherwise it's very strange. Like, I've had it's very strange if that's not the case. Like, I have here whatever. So some more running, but again, zone 2 running specifically. So that means, going up to maybe 7 hours of kind of dedicated time per week. We're really focusing on the minimum dose.
Was there any change in your bone density? Did that show up?
It seemed like it might have dropped a bit. Hang on. So this is from 24. My bone density here was 1.247. So let's say that's 1.25. And here it's so it did go up a tiny bit. So it went up from 1.22 to 1.25. So that's 30 grams per square centimeter, thereabouts. And so it did go up marginally, but I'm not sure how significant that is or not. We'll see next year.
And are you doing some high intensity stuff also, like for max heart rate stuff? Or
I do. Every time I run, I'll run I'll run a faster pace to finish. So for example, if I'll run like 12K in zone 2, so an easy pace that I mentioned, and then I'll do an almost sprint for at the moment it's about 8 minutes. So I do like between at the moment it's between 4:30 and a 4 minute per kilometer pace, and just gradually aiming to get that up to 2 kilometers unbroken, so about 9 minutes, and then I'll start trying to put that faster and faster. But not a big focus. I find that like the strength work is fairly intense. So it's also at the moment I'm not super drawn to it. And that's another thing, like I'm trying to be very economical with my willpower.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things, being adults, there's so many things we don't want to do. Like why should our self-care be another part of it?
Yeah, because it was something I was really interested. I was tracking some heart rate the last weeks, and like to see that the strength training is not having such a big impact on the heart rate, or like also going climbing and stuff. Like I was climbing really hard, some really hard routes, but like my heart rate was below 120 all the time. And
No.
I was thinking like, oh yeah, I definitely get some intensity in my week there, but like, nah, I was not.
I don't know, and you don't have to respond vocally, but if Andre or Magdalene or Bram or Talia have any questions or remarks, we can see. It's lovely.
Hey, Martin. So no, I think it's really lovely what you have done here and what you are sharing with us. I think it's a really nice path and let's say, yeah, process that you are doing now. And I'm curious to see where that takes you. But also, I'm really kind of questioning myself about how I can get involved in some things like this, because I'm really, I mean, some things like what you mentioned about the sleeping patterns and taking care of the yeah, the good practices for sleep and good length for sleep and those things. I'm not anywhere there. I really have bad habits about sleeping, and I'm curious about the meditation, how that can also work for me, because never done it. It's not something I never tried.
Yeah.
Let's say the other aspects, the strength, and as I think it's more personal in a way that how everybody will find its own way to do it, let's say. But those other habits that are more like not clearly defined yet for me, I think I need to work on those more.
Yeah.
Find a way, because finding the motivation to do it is what I don't have at the moment. So yeah, I think I have yeah, I have taken that from your talk.
Yeah, and like the good thing is we're nearby, so like I can coach you through it. I find it fascinating because my first martial arts student when I came to Antwerp had bad knees, bad ankles, bad wrists. It was so frustrating. Like I had to modify everything. Like I was certainly confronted with, oh, I can't do this with him because his ankles. I can't do this with him because of his knees. I can't. And so it really challenged me with my own knowledge to go, well, what do I actually know? Like what, again, coming back to Bram's remark around genetics and just where you are right now, that how much of that is unique to you and how much of it can be taken as an actual process.
Yeah.
Yeah, so happy to talk about it or maybe make a plan with it as well, Andre.
Great.
Maybe a check-in. I suppose I didn't really come out and say, like the intention behind the webinar was just kind of share my process, what I found useful and important, and also it's an open invitation to, if you're curious about it, to contact me, and I can look at coming up with a program with you. If I have enough people, what I would propose is like weekly group calls and at least one monthly one-on-one call to kind of shape it and give. It's really about having that, like something that I really appreciate from stuff I get to do with Bram, is having that community with a common goal. And that can give a lot of strength, a lot of ease to going through the process. Yeah, so share what I'm doing and also offer help to anyone that might be curious about some part of it that they want to explore more. And also I've know people that are genuine experts, for example, in sleep, that if if it goes beyond my ability to help or whatever, I know people that are like, it's their profession as sleep coaches, for example. But I already find it helps a lot just to talk through these things. The amount of things that come up once we start talking is always very surprising. Something Brian already does, but I'll add that to the inner peace thing. Writing. That can help a lot. Like I started blogging when I was doing my PhD, and it had a huge impact on how I look at the world. Because as I was writing down what would happen to me in a day, I would notice, that's not true what I'm saying, or that's not true what I'm thinking, and it really helped transform my mindset. So yeah, writing can help a lot. I think my mileage can vary, but it's definitely something in the last 20 years that has been really helpful for me. Cool. So I guess we're closing up then. What I'd like to do, just to finish, because I really jumped into it at the start, is if together we're going to take a moment for stillness. If you want, you don't have to. You can watch instead. And what you're going to do is about 5 times. You're going to inhale, exhale, and then wait. Wait until the next breath happens. So you're not even consciously deciding about the next breath. You're not suppressing it. You're not forcing it. You're just going, when does the next one happen, and allowing it to happen, and doing that 5 times. So inhale, exhale, and waiting there with your empty lungs. And feeling how much you can soften between the breaths. And then the next one happens. And then you exhale again. Wait again. Like it's probably the simplest meditation I know. It's a really powerful reset that can happen even in a single breath, because you're interrupting whatever rhythms were there, and you're tuning into how much breath does my body need right now? It's a nice thing. I use it sometimes, like yesterday when I was training, when I was really nervous about starting, or I wasn't really looking forward to starting my next exercise. I would just inhale, exhale, and wait for that moment where I could start. So there's a lot in that extended exhale into nothingness, that soft nothingness. A lot of things can soften and release. So if you're interested, I'll share these slides as on my Instagram anyways, but if you want any follow-up or to make a plan about connecting or anything like that, you can send me like a one-on-one message via the Zoom if I don't already have your contact details. And thanks a lot for your time. I appreciate it. I hope it was useful.
Martin, thank you a lot.
Yeah, thanks to you.
Thanks, Martin.
Take care.
Talk to you soon. Good luck.